The tension at McLaren is no longer just sporting. It is political, personal, and existential. After the escalation in Singapore, the foundation on which the British team has built its success is showing first cracks. And of all people, the man who has carried this success, Oscar Piastri, is now said to be considering a possible exit according to new rumors. What initially sounded like an overheated fantasy product of the tabloid press is increasingly gaining weight, especially after Ralf Schumacher spoke out publicly. The former Grand Prix winner, known for his direct words, explained on Sky Deutschland that Piastri could drive anywhere. Behind this harmless-sounding statement lies explosive potential. Because according to Schumacher, the possibility that Piastri could leave McLaren is no longer theoretical. He even hinted that the Australian could consider joining Red Bull if Max Verstappen were to leave, the very team that courted Piastri before his contract extension in 2023. The fact that Schumacher speaks this thought aloud is no coincidence. The signs within the paddock suggest that Piastri's patience with McLaren is waning. Since the infamous collision with Lando Norris in Singapore, where both drivers fought for supremacy and the title battle escalated openly, the atmosphere in the team seems increasingly poisoned. While McLaren publicly emphasizes treating both drivers equally, tensions are mounting internally. Piastri has indeed signed through 2028, but a long contract means little in Formula One if trust and perspective crumble. Christian Horner had tried to lure him to Red Bull before this contract was signed, and although Horner is no longer part of the team, the path there could open again. Especially if Verstappen, as has been hinted multiple times, considers his future outside of Red Bull. Ralf Schumacher stated it unmistakably. If Max leaves, Piastri could become a Red Bull driver. There have already been talks between Mark Webber and Red Bull. This statement cuts to the heart of the matter because Webber, Piastri's manager, has close connections to the upper echelons of the sport. His former rivalry with Red Bull may be legendary, but his business acumen is unquestionable. If he sees the opportunity to position Piastri long-term in a top team, he will use it. But Red Bull is not the only name in the room. According to Schumacher, Aston Martin could also be a potential target, particularly if Fernando Alonso indeed retires in 2026. The Spanish veteran has himself hinted that his career will not last forever, and Aston Martin has been searching for months for a way to strategically solve the succession question. A young, fast, and analytical driver like Piastri would be ideal for that. Ferrari is also considered an option should Lewis Hamilton decide to end the Maranello chapter after his 2026 contract. But here the situation becomes more complex. Piastri is not a driver who fits into Ferrari's rigid hierarchy. He needs an environment that gives him space to fully deploy his technical precision and tactical intelligence. McLaren was exactly that. Technically focused, calm, data-driven. But the climate is changing. Since the title battle with Norris escalated, Piastri seems more irritable, more dissatisfied. His radio message in Singapore, cool but pointed, was a foretaste of what is happening behind closed doors. Sources in the paddock report that Piastri is increasingly frustrated about the strategic preference given to Norris. Although McLaren officially denies any unequal treatment, the facts speak a different language: tactical advantages, communication priority, and the public perception as house favorite for Norris. This dynamic is fatally reminiscent of other legendary team duels: Senna-Prost, Hamilton-Rosberg, Alonso-Hamilton. Each time it began with symmetry, two equal drivers, a common goal. But as soon as success and egos collide, equality becomes an illusion. McLaren now stands exactly at this point. What makes it all dangerous is Piastri's personality. He is not an impulsive type. When he acts, he thinks it through. Should he truly be considering a move, it is not from emotion, but from calculation. And that should worry McLaren. Because while the team exhausts itself with internal discussions about fairness and team rules, Red Bull and Aston Martin are already looking ahead to a driver who could shape the next decade. A possible departure of Oscar Piastri would be for McLaren more than just a sporting loss. It would be a strategic earthquake. Because the Australian embodies what has made McLaren great again after years of crisis: precision, calm, and technical intelligence. Should he truly leave, the team would stand not only without a title contender, but also without its most important long-term pillar. Within the paddock, the news has spread like wildfire. That Ralf Schumacher speaks publicly about a potential move at all shows how far the conversations have already progressed in the minds of experts. And the timing is no coincidence. After Singapore, it is clear the relationship between Piastri and McLaren is damaged. Officially, there is no mistrust, but anyone who has observed body language in the garage senses that trust is crumbling. Andrea Stella is trying to downplay the situation. "We are a team that analyzes conflicts professionally," he said recently. But behind the scenes, he knows that he is in danger of losing control over a fragile relationship. While Piastri remains cool and calculating, Norris is increasingly reacting more emotionally. A dangerous contrast at a time when every gesture becomes political. Zach Brown, meanwhile, faces a dilemma. His strategy of building two equal number one drivers works only as long as both believe in the fairness of the system. But the papaya rules originally created to prevent escalations now seem like a fetter that hinders Piastri's development. In a sport that lives by ego, such a feeling can become toxic. For Piastri, a move would not be a flight, but a repositioning. Red Bull offers what McLaren can no longer guarantee him: absolute priority. Should Max Verstappen really exit in 2027 or move to another team, a top seat would open up that Piastri could immediately occupy. He brings exactly the profile that Red Bull is looking for: young, analytical, unshakable. And above all, he understands how to push a car to its limits without losing his head. Aston Martin is also watching the situation closely. Andy Cowell, the new team principal, is looking for a successor to Fernando Alonso, whose retirement is expected no later than 2026. The team is investing massively, the budget is secured, the infrastructure is state-of-the-art. What is missing is a driver with the potential to shape the future. Piastri would be the perfect piece of the puzzle. A move to Aston Martin in 2027 would therefore not only be realistic but strategically wise. And Ferrari? The Italian team could theoretically be an option should Lewis Hamilton end the Maranello chapter earlier. But the internal politics of the Scuderia are notorious, and Piastri is not one who fits into Ferrari's emotional theatrical logic. He needs structure, stability, and above all, control. At McLaren, he is slowly losing this. The irony here, McLaren itself has created this situation. The attempt to keep everything fair and controlled has created a climate in which neither of the two drivers truly feels free. Piastri sees himself disadvantaged by strategies. Norris feels treated unjustly by the criticism. Andrea Stella stands in the middle and tries through diplomacy to extinguish a fire that has long since spiraled out of control. For the team, the situation is more dangerous than many believe. Because a tense title battle can still be managed, but a breach of trust between driver and management? That is rarely repairable. Should Piastri feel that McLaren no longer considers him as equal, then the first step to the exit is long since taken. In his mind, if not on paper. In Woking, they know that. That is why conversations are being held now informally, discreetly, but with growing urgency. McLaren wants to maintain calm, but everyone in the paddock knows. If a driver of Piastri's caliber is dissatisfied, then telephones ring at other teams. And the fact that someone like Ralf Schumacher makes the rumors public indicates that behind the scenes, far more is already happening than McLaren admits. What does this mean for the future? Should Piastri really move, McLaren would once again be forced to redefine its identity. The team could establish Lando Norris as clear number one, but that would be a risky game. Because Norris also knows that loyalty in Formula One is a currency with a short half-life. If McLaren favors him today, it could cost him dearly tomorrow if a new, ambitious teammate comes along. The reality is brutal. In an era where power structures and careers tip in seconds, there is no room for sentimentality. Piastri knows this, Norris senses it, and McLaren stands in the midst of the storm. The Australian driver will carefully weigh his next steps, and McLaren must decide whether it wants to keep him or whether it is ready to let him go. Because in Formula One, it is never just about who has the fastest car. It is about who has the courage to risk control. And if McLaren does not understand that, the man who was supposed to bring them the title could soon be driving for the competition.